This is that from the thrash metal band Wreck-Defy. You're listening to Metal Meltdown on Metal Messiah Radio with Dave Softee.
Dave Softee! Dave Softee!
Alrighty, Metal Maniacs, here we go. Please help me welcome back to Metal Messiah Radio, hailing from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, from thrash metal band Wreck-Defy. Joining us, we have, once again, guitarist Matt Hanchuck. Welcome back to the Metal Meltdown, bro. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. The last time we got together was for Fragments of Anger, and we got a lot of good feedback from that interview, a lot of good support on the podcast, and I was really excited when you reached out to me before the album was completed. You told me about the lineup and everything like this. I'm like, wow, you got a super group going on here. What's going on? And so yeah, and you just sent me the music, and I want to thank you first of all for letting me check out your brand new CD, Remnants of Pain. Again, thank you for sending this to me. Now, was this self-released, or are you still associated with Alone Records based in Greece?
It was released independently. I pressed 1,000 copies of the CD. I'm going to shop it again to other labels. Actually, as of today, we've got some good feedback and some interesting offers from some labels, actually. But one of the deciding factors is going to, unfortunately, going to be the ability to commit to tour dates. Certain labels want, the bigger the label, the more the touring, the expectation from the artist to tour is greater. For obvious reasons, I guess. They want as much exposure as possible if they're going to sign you to, a quasi-lucrative deal. The problem with myself and a lot of the guys that are in Wreck-Defy right now is that we've all got, not aside from the logistical problems of getting together, when we all live in different corners of the world, so to speak, but the reality of it is we're all career-driven people. So, 60 dates a year, not going to happen. 30 dates a year, yeah, we could probably commit to that. We could probably make 30 dates work. So the question now is that something that the labels are going to be willing to work with, right? So as far as Alone Records goes, I actually just recently signed an exclusive to do a label run of Remnants of Pain with them. They did a great job of the pressing of the first record. So, and I'm big on loyalty too. I mean, Emmanuel was a really good guy. I think I touched on him a little bit, the guy that runs Alone Records in Greece.
Right.
So, a throwback to him. If he wants to do another vinyl pressing of the band, then yeah, absolutely. I can, let's agree to that, right? But moving forward with what label are we going to put this out under, I don't know yet. And I wish I could tell you, but there is a couple offers on the table, but we haven't decided on anything yet collectively. And actually, I've been bouncing every time I get feedback from some of these labels. I bounce it off of Aaron Randall, the vocalist, and Aaron's got a really good musical pedigree, and he's dealt with some of the, unfortunately, shadier sides of the business, something I actually haven't been privileged to yet, which is a good thing, but, some of the deals aren't as artist-friendly as they seem. And if you're going to sign over everything that you worked hard to, create, and you've spent all this money out of your own pocket to put it out and a record out, I mean, if all the label that you're going to sign with is going to do is essentially distribute the CDs that you've pressed, then you can do that on your own.
Exactly. You don't need a label. You just got to distribute it.
That's right.
To get the music
That's right.
out there.
And you know what? Dave, there's a million labels like that online. So we're looking for an opportunity to maybe have someone advance us some money for some merchandise, some proper merchandising,
Right.
Maybe a selection of T-shirts as opposed to just what the band can afford to put out, maybe even a nice a property quality based video, would be another something that would be beneficial to the band that a label could use to exploit the notoriety of the players and so forth. So. It's going to have to be a collective thing. It's going to have to be good for everybody, label as well as the artists themselves. And if not, we'll stay at the independent level for now. I'm optimistic. I think we have a strong record, Dave, and now we've got two under our belts under the Wreck-Defy moniker. I believe that the proper opportunity will present itself.
Yes, and we need to inform the listeners that you put together a super group of sorts for this brand new offering, Remnants of Pain. And I want to mention all the members that are now part of the lineup for this. And you just mentioned Aaron Randall on vocals, and if people don't know who he is, he's from Annihilator. So that's outstanding within itself. But then you also have Greg Christian on bass, formerly of Testament, and you have Alex Marquez on drums from Demolition Hammer and Solstice. So you have put together quite an ensemble here, and I would like if you could spend some time with us talking about this with the Metal Maniacs. How did you coordinate this Wreck-Defy supergroup lineup of sorts on Remnants of Pain? What strings did you have to pull to make this happen?
So there wasn't really any strings to pull, so to speak. It was just a matter of reaching out to musicians that I revered as, good at what they do, essentially, great at their own craft, and then me essentially having the intestinal fortitude to reach out to them, And I guess the position that I was in was good at that point because, Fragments was positively revered, albeit on an independent underground level. Most of the feedback with regards to the first record was very positive, and and so I actually had an album, somewhat of I guess you could consider it a type of resume at that time that I could forward it to these guys to say, well, this is essentially the type of songwriting that's going to be sought after, so to speak, and would you be willing to collaborate? Aaron was the first guy I reached out to once Justin backed out. There was no other guy for me actually that had a basically notoriety behind them that had been an established artist. There was a few guys that I don't want to call anybody a nobody, but there was a few guys that weren't known that I was going to pursue had Aaron backed out. But yeah, within a couple of days of getting in contact with Aaron, just through social media, actually, through Facebook, I sent him a few songs. Specifically, I think it was Justify the Unjust and Human Waste from Fragments. And within like 3-4 days, he got back to me and said, yeah, let's do a record together. This is good stuff. I'm into it.
Excellent.
So, yeah, and the beauty of that was, I don't know if you recall when I spoke to you last, I had like a library of songs kind of left over from the first record. So I had stuff on hand that I could send them immediately, which was cool because from the onset, we started sharing ideas. So, I don't think it was 6 weeks post the release of Fragments, and I was already focused on this new album, Remnants of Pain. So, it was really things just kind of fell into place really quick. As far as Greg coming on board, I actually reached out to Juan Urtiga to mix and master the record before Greg was involved. So it was essentially myself and Aaron in the initial stages. And I knew we were going to go with a studio-based drummer. I wasn't sure who. But I got a hold of Juan, and just so everyone knows who Juan is, Juan is, to me, is like, he should be as revered or held in the same regard as like Andy Sneap or, Peter Teg Tigran, a lot of these famous metal producer guys, because Juan has mixed and mastered and produced some brilliant records from some amazing artists, like Machine Head, Testament, Heathen, Vicious Rumors, Dragon Lord. The list goes on. The guy's, and just about every album he's touched that I've heard in my years has turned to gold. So, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to seek someone out with his ability. And talking to Greg, I explained to him, I said, we're looking for a bass player. If all else failed, I was actually going to get Justin, who did the vocals and the bass lines on the first record, to do it as a studio session player. But then that still left us in a position where we would need a bass player for live shows.
Right.
So talking to Juan, I guess Juan had an epiphany. Juan came to my house in June of last year for a few days, and we banged off the rhythm guitar tracks in my home recording studio here. He took everything back to California with him, and then he had a session drummer come in. Anyways, moving forward, it was Juan that suggested, hey, Greg, he's got the Trauma thing going on, but it's at the time Trauma was just getting off its feet, just getting started again. But he'd been defunct from Testament for a while. So anyways, that's how that came about. And then when I spoke with Greg, Greg was said, let's do some shows. Let's not just make this a studio thing for shits and giggles. Let's do some shows based on this. I guess he had an appreciation for the music as well. So So, and that's the main difference between the first record and this record, Dave, is that the first record, although Justin was, willingly there as a participant to sing and play vocals and start do the vocals and play bass on the record, he kind of told me from the finishing stages of that album that he wasn't going to be around for long. So after he committed to a live show at the Manitoba Metal Fest back in March of last year, he was bowing out of the band, and I knew that long before that came to fruition. So essentially, the difference is now I've actually got a band, and it's not the Matt Hanchuck project with some hired guns. These guys, like Aaron's the frontman of Wreck-Defy. Greg's the bass player. So I mean, as far as drummers go, yes, Alex has agreed to do shows with the band. Specifically, we talked about doing a European run with them and possibly some U.S. dates. However, Ray Hartman, who's also former drummer of Annihilator and really good friends with Aaron, who I've been talking to Ray the last little bit, Ray has also expressed an interest in wanting to play shows with Wreck-Defy as well.
That's excellent.
So, that is great, yeah, and it's nice to have that opportunity to, I don't want to be, I'm not the kind of guy that likes to butter both sides of my bread, because I think that's not really, it's kind of a sneaky thing to do. So moving forward at this point, we've got an option as to what drummer would probably work out best for the band. Playing-wise, I don't want to compare the two guys because they're completely different style. They're both brilliant drummers in their own right. It's an unfair expectation to compare them skill-wise. But as far as logistics go, I don't know if it might be easier for Ray, being a Canadian resident himself, to find the time to rehearse with the band, as opposed to just coming together, a week before a set of shows or something, which is what we'd have to do with Alex. So, yes, Alex has committed to the band and has agreed to play live. Moving forward, I don't know if that's going to happen or if Ray will be the one playing those shows.
But it's a good thing that you have the options, because you don't know which way it's going to go, so you have a backup plan, which is good.
It's true, and I hate to say it like that because it sounds like one guy's inferior to the other, but that is not the case at all. I want to be clear about that.
No, I understand. Yeah.
I'm humbled by both guys wanting to take part in this. I'm a fan of both of those guys since I was a young whippersnapper. So whichever way it works out, I'm honored and I'm humbled to have those guys, either one of them, play with Wreck-Defy. I don't have a preference, so moving forward, I know one of those guys will be. I don't know which one it will be. Obviously, it's going to come down to the logistics. So that's how that came about, Dave.
You see how it flows when it comes to that point. And I have to tell you, the production is stellar. And was this recorded? Did you say this was recorded in your own studio?
The guitar tracks were done here in Thunder Bay. Aaron did the vocals at his home studio, on his own console at home. And then the drums and the bass tracks were done in Pacheco, California, Trident Studios, which is one studio. So, yeah, it was kind of a Heinz 57 type of recording process. I mean, this is the beauty of the digital world, right? But in the end, that sound, I have to give all the credit to Juan. I mean, that's the mix, right? Juan mixed that record, and it sounds killer. It sounds as pummeling as anything else that's out there right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
On a much bigger budgeted label too. You know what I mean? Like it holds up to a lot of that really high end metal, and that's a testament to Juan's genius. Behind the console there.
It is the state of the art, and it's excellent sound.
Great, I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious because we were talking about label shopping and the demands of labels and wanting you to perform a certain amount of shows. But beyond the labels, and let's say that you just decide to stay independent and do your own thing your own way, do you already have any shows lining up in the works that we could spread the word on, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
We've got some stuff in the works. We're trying to negotiate again, and I don't want to sound like a suck here, but everything's careers first, and then the Wreck-Defy secondary stuff. So all the shows are going to be basically based around time off work or holidays, right? So I've got some holidays coming up, as does Aaron. Greg's got some time in the summer as well. I spoke with Curran Murphy. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Shatter Messiah.
Oh yeah.
Out of Akron, Ohio. Yeah. So Curran, he also owns a company called Custom Audio Mutation. There's a little plug for Curran. He's a luthier, if you will, for guitar amps, and he just sent me one. He just custom built me a Cam Audio 850 M2 head, and it sounds amazing. Anyways, I spoke to Kern about Shatter Messiah doing like a co-headlining thing, a little bit of a run for a couple weeks with Wreck-Defy, and he was completely into it. So that's a possibility of doing a run with those guys. And then earlier on in the year, like quite a ways back, I spoke with Matt DeFabio, I believe is his last name, from Single Bullet Theory, and he was also potentially interested in playing shows. I don't know if you'll remember that.
I've heard of that band, and I very almost had an interview with them, but it never happened. I don't know what happened with them, but they had asked me about doing an interview, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But it never happened. That happens sometimes. It's very odd, but
All right, eh?
yeah, but it did happen, and I was into the music. I thought it was cool. It would be a good interview, but it never happened. I don't think it was like a brand new release. It might have been a year out there already, but
Sure.
that's no problem. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that band, but nothing ever developed. We never got to do the interview. But I did notice, though, on Facebook, I was noticing today especially, that you're getting a lot of good feedback about this release. And I have your Bandcamp. It's rec/defy.bandcamp.com/releases. And I see Fragments is still on there, but where would be the best place for the fans to get a copy of Remnants of Pain, whether it be the digital copy or the physical copy? Would that be through your Facebook, or do you have an update for the Bandcamp?
It's actually not on Bandcamp yet. So the album actually officially dropped on February 1st. So it's been out basically a week. We've sold a few hundred copies through Facebook and that already. But it's as of right now, Dave, it's just going to be directly through the band. It's through social media. Anyone reach out to me, Matt, through the Wreck-Defy page. It's going to be they're $15 Canadian. So that's like $2 US or something.
Oh, yeah.
Not quite, but
no,
yeah, we're selling them for 15 Canadian, and I think it's 19 Canadian with shipping anywhere in Canada, and I believe it was 22 Canadian anywhere shipping in the US.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's what we have. Well, we have to go talk to the post office to make sure that that would be fair for everyone, and that's essentially it's about $7 to ship a CD from Canada. So. To the U.S. It's not cheap to ship, but anyways, yeah. Right now, that's the best way to acquire a CD. Obviously, the vinyl will be available through Alone Records in I guess end of April, beginning of May, and hopefully by then we'll have a label that's willing to carry our CDs as well.
Yeah, keep us posted up to the updates of that, and we wish you the best with that. I hope that whatever you do with whatever label, whatever you decide on doing, that it works out best for you and the band.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, and that, like, you understood exactly what I was talking about. I mean, some of the internet labels they're not, there's nothing really appealing when you break it down other than being locked into a contractual agreement that doesn't free you up a whole lot. So if you're going to sign with someone and the reality of it is all they're going to do is distribute the CDs that you've pressed, then we can do that ourselves,
Exactly. I've gotten with a lot of underground bands through my time doing Metal Meltdown and Metal Messiah Radio, and a lot of the bands are signed, but they're signed to an independent label, and when I asked them how the label's working out for them, they really rather not say, because basically the point is that they are a distributor and they're not doing anything else for the band. They're not doing any tour support, any merch support, any video support. So they're really not doing anything for the band. So what's the point of being signed if the band or the label is not really a label or doing anything for them? So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yes, exactly. And it's one of those things where you've invested so much money into your product and stuff, just, based on the production costs and stuff like that. You got such a polished product that you're so happy of and proud of. I mean, the last thing you want to do is have it fall through the cracks because some indie label dropped the ball on it, rather. So if someone's going to drop the ball, we'd rather just do it ourselves.
Exactly. Now, we were mentioning also about labels and you wanting to have the labels help you somehow with really good merch. Speaking of merch, what do you currently have available for your fans? Have you been able to make any new posters or T-shirts or anything like that, or is that all something like a work in progress for you?
Yeah, I haven't done anything like that for the new record yet, Dave. And quite honestly, it just comes down to costs.
Right.
Basically, the cost to do this new record was a little bit more than I'd anticipated. I'm not complaining because I mean, you get what you pay for, so to speak, and it does sound pretty killer. But you know what? I got to be responsible financially, and I shouldn't be putting myself in debt over this Wreck-Defy project. So a little bit, a couple grand is one thing, but you start charging the credit card to press T-shirts. I don't think that's the best idea.
Well,
So
it might.
you know what I mean?
You might not get the residuals back as quickly as you'd like.
Yeah, so I honestly believe that things will align themselves for us. I just don't know when or with who, but I'm going to stay optimistic about this whole thing and just keep a positive outlook on it, see what happens, man.
That's really all you can do. Now, what about like music or lyrical videos? I know you don't have that coming out yet, but have you thought about what you would like to do if you do get the support to do it, or what is the word on the future possibilities of some sort of videos or even live performance videos for Remnants of Pain? Has there any thought process been involved in that?
Well, speaking of videos, there's an interesting thing that's actually brewing for the band here. And basically, do you remember the Canadian alternative metal band? I wouldn't even call them metal. I guess alternative rock band. They're called Default or Default.
I believe I've heard of them, yes. I'm not really familiar with them, but the name does sound familiar.
They are a platinum-selling band. They've sold millions of records. They had some number one songs, 3 or 4 number one songs, U.S. and Canada, as well as some other countries. They're more like I don't want to compare them to Nickelback or anything, but they're that genre of music, that style of music.
Mainstream. We don't really play
Mainstream,
that.
for sure. Absolutely. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So Dave Benedict, the bass from Default, he's actually agreed to direct our first video, which off Remnants of Pain.
Excellent.
Which will be, and it'll be a professionally filmed, a pro shot video with all the trimmings and everything, So when is that going to happen? Probably this spring. It'll probably be on location somewhere in Vancouver. But I don't know. If that's going to be sooner than later. But we've already actually negotiated with him and been in talks with him.
Good news.
Yeah. So the ability to have that come to fruition is there. It's just a matter of cost right now. So yeah.
The root of all evil. That's the money that you need to do everything you need to do.
This is it, man. The indie guys, we fly at the seat of our pants, and one step at a time, right? So like we just got the record done, so now we just kind of got to sell a few copies to recoup a little bit of the cost, and then maybe we can. All the money goes back into the band, right? It's not like we're just trying to make the money back that we put out, so we can put it back into something else, which would, in this case, would be the cost of a video potentially,
Right. And
right.
And the future of Wreck-Defy. Being that I need to ask you this, I know it's like hindsight is 2020, and this is brand new, and you have a new lineup, and the touring possibilities. You still haven't, you're not really sure exactly what the exact lineup's going to be for that. But as far as your point of view and what you see for the future of Wreck-Defy, do you see this lineup carrying forward to future releases from Wreck-Defy? For number 3, number 4, do you think there's a possibility of that, or you have to just take it slow and see how it goes?
No, 100%. The next record would be the same lineup.
Excellent.
Yeah, it definitely Greg, Aaron, and myself. As far as drummers go, I don't want to give a definitive answer as to who would be playing drums on the next record because I couldn't give you an honest answer at this time. Wishful thinking, well, it'd either be Alex or Ray, right? But I don't know if that's going to happen. So it'll be us 3, and we'll make it work. How's that?
That sounds like a great plan, great idea.
We'll be able to sucker some drummer into doing a record with us. So.
I'm sure they'll be more than happy to join the band too, because from Fragments to now, and what I'm noticing, like the buzz, like I mentioned on Facebook, it sounds like Wreck-Defy is growing really fast, and as far as popularity and the fan base, so I see great things happening for Wreck-Defy in the future.
Well, I hope you're right, Dave, and I appreciate that. I really do. A lot of the songs for the new record, I was apprehensive of even putting them on the record. Like, I'm not sure if I sent them to you in the actual sequence that they appear on the album or not, but if you had the record in your hand, it would be track 4, Looking Back, track 6, The Divide, and then obviously the ballady song, track 8, Angels and Demons. Those 3 songs were such a departure from the style of music from the first record. I mean, they're still metal songs, don't get me wrong, but they certainly weren't full-on thrash metal songs. And I was, at first I was a little, I don't know, man, like, even though I wrote them, I wasn't sure that they fit. But looking back on it, pardon the pun, what I found was the linkage between even the thrash metal songs to those songs was Aaron's vocals. I mean, the guy just has a melodic set of pipes about him, right? So, even the most pummeling thrash song on that record, the new one, which is Black and Cloth, a song about child molestation within the Catholic priest and stuff, within the Catholic Church rather, by Catholic priests and so forth. That song, I mean, because of Aaron's vocals, it gives it a sense of relief, so to speak. It's not just a pummeling experience from front to back. It's got sort of a let up because of the melodies that he inserts with his vocal ability. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. So,
yeah.
And doing the album like you did, there are several kick-ass thrash tunes on the new album, but you do have, like you said, I guess it's 3 different styles, 3 different sounding songs, a little bit different pace, and but you're offering something different, which is good because not everything should sound the same. So
right.
it's a good idea that you do that, to mix it up, to give fans another flavor of Wreck-Defy. So that's totally a great thing that you did, I believe.
Good. I'm glad you think that way, because that's all I was hoping for, is someone giving it a chance and at least listen to it, and not just write it off because it didn't punch you in the face the second you hit play. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, even if you're a fan that's 100% into thrash and you don't like the more melodic tunes, so you give it a listen, and if 1 or 2 tracks don't do it for you, the rest of the album offers a lot of outstanding thrash. So there definitely is a winner. Remnants of Pain is a kick-ass offering. Whether it's 1 or 2 songs that are not exactly what you would expect, still, it's a great offering, and it's worth having in your collection.
Right on, man. That sounds great.
It does sound great. Wait till the people hear it on tonight on the show, and
awesome.
They're definitely going to want it, because I think we got a lot of good feedback from Fragments after our interview, from what I noticed, from what I remember noticing. So I have a feeling that the fans that you gained and that you already had existing before our last interview and following this interview, I think things will go in an even more positive direction for you. And that's the whole reason for doing these interviews, to spread the word about this band being Wreck-Defy, and your latest news. So I appreciate everything that you've done leading up to this interview, by telling me what you had planned and making it available for me to listen to the music, and we could do this. You did everything to make it easy for me to get this interview done with you, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, hey, man, I remember at the end of the interview, I think it was almost exactly a year ago, sometime in February of last year, if I remember correctly. One thing you said to me before I let you go, Dave, was keep in touch, keep me posted. Words to that effect.
And exactly, and you did. That's exactly. I tell my guests all this all the time, and sometimes they don't believe me, and I have to find out like 6 months later they have a new music out there they never told me about. But you told me about it before it was released, so you gave me a heads up that we're gonna get another interview when the music's out there. And that's why we're here, and this is the way it's supposed to be done. And I'll say again, my door will always be open for you.
Well, you know what, Dave? I'm going to put a plug on your show for you here right now, actually. And I meant every band that's been on your show owes you a nod of gratitude and a thumbs up, because you've done a lot to help bands like Wreck-Defy get the exposure that they need in this underground circuit. And I think everyone should take a minute and just be thankful that there's people like yourself, Dave, that are willing to do this to support bands like myself, and you forever have our gratitude. And I think everyone owes you a little bit of respect because of that. I just wanted to say that, okay? I
appreciate that you're saying that, and thank you for your kind words. And this is just something it's almost like you want to say a religion. I believe in the underground, and that's why we do this. I believe.
I know you do.
Metal Messiah Radio, we're not into mainstream. We're into supporting the underground. and that's what I firmly believe. And we have many different DJs, from black metal to power metal to hair metal. Hair metal, from the 80s, I guess you would say that's more mainstream kind of a sound. And it's not really for me, but I respect all the DJs that are here, and they do their thing and do it the best way that they can, and I appreciate all that. But for me, Metal Meltdown, Metal Messiah Radio, and the Metal Meltdown on Metal Messiah Radio is all about supporting the underground, and that's my philosophy, that's my belief, and that's why I came here. So this
Yeah, and
is
I'm a firm believer in the whole united you stand, divided you fall sort of mindset or approach to things. And to me, it's not just united you stand with the other bands, but it's all those involved. And so guys like yourself, there's other VJs and podcast people throughout the world that are doing similar things to what yourself is doing, Dave, and that you're bringing the exposure of these bands like Wreck-Defy to the forefront of the underground, so to speak. And you know what? Without you, we would have less exposure, and then without the bands, you would have no one to have on the show. So it's united we stand, and I think that's a great thing, because it shows the camaraderie, if you will, within music, not just, it transcends just metal. It's music, like you said. There's glam metal, all this other stuff, and you know what? I'm not a big glam metal fan either, but when I look at the musicians themselves, you can't deny the ability. I mean, anyone who says Sebastian Bach's not a good singer or Warren DeMartini's not a good guitar player, they must be smoking crack. Because, I mean, those guys are geniuses at what they do, right? Even though it's not my thing, that you can't deny their talent or their ability. So, I think everyone is feeding off each other, and I think that's a good thing, and the camaraderie rings through. And I think it's a purist type of thing, right? The underground, it's all about the music, because it's not about money. We're not making money, so
exactly.
It's got to be about the music. And I think collectively we all share that common thread.
I agree with you. And every day you have new bands from around the world coming out with new music, and if I like the music, I'm definitely going to play it. I'm definitely going to pursue an interview, and I believe that this music needs to be heard, and that's why we're doing this. And just by talking with you about this conversation we're having right now, I'm reminded of my past when I used to be in the restaurant business, and the owner was Italian, and he would say something to me in Italian, and I'm like, I don't speak Italian, so I'm like, well, what did you just say? And he's like, with one hand, can you do? I don't know if we talked about this the last time, but with one hand, what can you do? And I'm looking at him as you a pervert? What are you telling me? What are you asking me? With one hand, what you could do? He says, with one hand, what could you do? I'm like, well, not much, but if you have two hands, what can you do? I'm like, he says you could wash a face. So that's his translation of what he said in Italian. But basically, he's saying with teamwork, when you have more than one hand, you can accomplish a lot. So that's why I agree with you. This world of the underground that we're in, if we all work together the best that we can, we could definitely achieve a lot more for the underground than doing it by ourselves. There's nothing we could do alone.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and this is why I appreciate people like you more than you can imagine, Dave. I hold people like yourself in high regard for that reason.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's why we do this, because we believe it. It's like I said, like our religion. This is what we believe in, and when you have a band such as Wreck-Defy, and you have Matt Hanchuck here for an interview, and he gives you those kind words of appreciation, it means everything. So thank you so much for saying that. Thank you.
And I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, buddy. I've never even met you in person, so I got no reason to blow smoke up your butt.
No, I know.
I'm just being sincere with you.
No,
yeah.
I know you are. I didn't take it any other way. And I want to thank you again for spending time with us tonight on the Metal Meltdown on Metal Messiah Radio, so that we could talk about this brand new release, Remnants of Pain. And I wish you the best of success with this and all your future releases. And like I said, and you know this by now, any new release that you have, come to me and we'll coordinate it, that we could get another interview done, because the music's worth it. And I'm really happy about what I've heard today from Remnants of Pain, and just keep it going. Now, you wrote all this music yourself, or did you have any help in writing this music?
No, I wrote all the music.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I wrote all the music. A lot of the lyrics were changed. Aaron Randall wanted to change some of the lyrical ideas that I had. Take out words, take out syllables. As a front man, as a vocalist, he wanted certain things to just kind of roll off his tongue differently. and that was cool. You know what I mean? I certainly by no means took offense to that. I mean, the whole point of having a group of guys to collaborate with is just that, so you can collaborate, right? So, and I think all the ideas that he brought forth only benefited the tracks. I don't believe it took away from anything. So the changes that Aaron wanted to implement were changes for the better, you know, and that's a testament to his knowledge in vocals and melody. So, yeah, everything worked out great, Dave. I'm really happy with everything right now.
Yes, you should be, and I'm glad that we got to do this. At this time, is there anything that you would like to say to your fans that are tuning in, the ones that have been with you from the beginning, and hopefully the new fans that you're going to gain tonight by listening to your music and listening to you talk?
I just, you know, positive vibes and much respect to any fans, yesterday, today, and tomorrow's fans. You know, anyone who takes the time to research. Look us up on Facebook, or do some research, track down the music, or even order a CD from us. You have no idea how much we appreciate that. I mean, it's people like that that essentially enable us to keep doing this and keep making records. So I want to thank the fans from the bottom of my heart, because without the fans, we have nothing. Yeah, it's all about the fans, actually. It's about, and you know what? We're fans of this music. I mean, we're the biggest metalheads, you know. So yeah, we're not the ones on the stage. We're the ones in the crowd, you know, screaming as loud as the guy next to us. So we're all part of the same nucleus here. You know, we're all one and the same. So yeah,
all in the same blood, as you say, right?
There we go. All of the same blood. I think that's a Creator song.
That is a Creator song, yes. And I just got to tell you, I was this past Saturday. I was at we have a power metal show, the Power Slaves, with Toby and Lori, and I believe that you know them. And
Lori Volk.
Yes, and
Lori's great. Lori's great. I love Lori. Yeah.
Exactly, and she loves your bands from the very first interview that we've had. They've been playing your music as well, even though they're more power metal, but they love your Wreck-Defy sound. And I was in their chat room on Saturday while they're doing their show, and I let them know in the chat room that we got this new interview coming, and I printed out. I typed in the chat room who the lineup is, and Lori was like, "Holy shit, what a lineup!" She didn't exactly say "holy shit," but she was like very impressed. So yeah, you got a great thing going on here. So you're geared for success, even though we are talking about the underground. You got an incredible lineup and a great sound. So you are what I would say geared for success.
Well, that's great. That's very encouraging, Dave. You know, and I mean, these songs would be nothing without the guys playing them. So, you know, although I'm the one writing the music means nothing if it's not put together properly, and it's certainly not something I can do on my own. So, props has to be given to Greg's performance, you know, Aaron's performance. And let's put a plug out for the session drummer we had here. That was Dave O'Neill from the Bay Area band Angerhead. Actually played all the drums on the record.
Wow.
So, and he did a stellar job. And also, you know, last but not least, you know, the sound, the production of this record is all incumbent upon the quality of Juan Ortega's mix and mastering job. So collectively, that's what made the record turn out the way it did. It's certainly not a one-man operation by any means, and I don't want to take credit from anyone. Those guys contributed an equal amount, and they all deserve the same amount of respect with regards to the quality of this record. So.
I totally understand that, but we also have to give kudos to you, Matt Hanchuck, because you're the one that put this all together. You got this lineup, and you got the ball rolling. You wrote the songs, and you made this happen. So you deserve some sort of credit as well.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that, man.
And I appreciate that you're not an egomaniac to say, well, if it wasn't for me, none of this would have happened. But basically, if it wasn't for you, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, no, that's the furthest thing from who I am, though. I'm definitely not an egomaniac.
No, I know. But I want to thank you again for another great interview and telling us about all this great information for Remnants of Pain. And definitely keep us posted still, because this is brand new and fresh, and we have news coming up, hopefully, about if you decide to go with a certain label, get certain touring, get certain videos, anything you got going on. Definitely tag me. We'll definitely spread the word. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. And I'm going to send you a hard copy of the CD there. I'm working nights the rest of this week, Dave, but my first day off there next Friday. So basically a week from yesterday, I'm going to send you a CD, okay?
I definitely appreciate that, and I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of this, as you know. I'm really
Awesome,
happy.
man.
I'm really happy about it. Yeah, I wasn't even concerned that it wasn't going to sound as great as it does. But I just like, yeah. But I heard it. I'm like, yeah, this is right up my alley. I appreciate it.
Well, here's the interesting thing. If I can add one quick thing here, and I know you
Go
got to
right,
go, but
go right ahead.
originally I wanted to use Glenn Drover to mix and master it again. I might even have said that to you in the last interview, and at the time that was true because I was so pleased with the way Fragments turned out that I just wanted to continue on, with the same sort of sound on the record. But then growing with the record, as the record grows with you, you start to identify flaws on the record. And in no way am I saying that the production of Glenn on the last record was flawed. That's not what I'm saying. But I always heard other artists say, we don't want to make the same record twice. You don't want to make the same record twice. And I never understood that, because I always thought, unless it's a complete departure in the left field, like you get some bands, they go from one extreme to another. I don't want to name any bands because, that wouldn't be the right thing to do. But basically what I'm alluding to here is after listening to Fragments, I thought, the songs would have sounded better if the production was sharper here and there and if this, that, and the other, So I thought to myself, well, maybe let's just strive for that. Let's strive for a more sonic mix, a little more bottom end in the bass drums, let's do that, right? And I listened to some of the mixes from Juan's stuff that he's done, and I thought, well, geez, that's the guy. This is the sound I'm after right here. If we could have this sound translate to a Wreck-Defy album, Bob's your uncle, man. That's what I'm after, right?
You made the right decisions because I'm
and at the same time, I just sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but at the same time, I wasn't quite done. I didn't want to have to tell Glenn, hey, look, I'm seeking out your services again, but can you change this, that, and the other thing? I didn't want to do that, right?
Right, I understand that.
I don't think that would have been the right thing to do, and I think in a sense it's maybe even a little bit bordering on disrespectful. So, just pursue the guy that has the sound you want and, see if it'll work. And then another issue was to ensure that the costs were going to be effective, but it was, it was a little more, cost a little bit more to get Juan to do it than Glenn, but at the same time, it wasn't substantial. It wasn't enough to break the bank. It was still reasonable. So this is why we went the route that we did, and I'm glad that we did.
I'm glad that you did too, because as I was saying, I'm a fan of Fragments, but you kicked it up a notch or so with Remnants.
And that was the whole point, Dave. That was the whole point, and
exactly.
that's what I meant. It sounds basically nothing like Fragments. It's the same style of music, but it's a departure sonically.
Right, and then getting back to what you're talking about with Drover being the producer. See, do you remember back in the day there was a very famous producer called Roy Thomas Baker? Do you remember all the bands that he produced? They all sounded the same.
This is true.
And
Alex Perry Ellis did the same thing.
So that you don't want that because someone that has their sound and everybody sounds like them, it's like it gets kind of boring. Everybody sounds the same.
I know what you mean, 100%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, thank you again for a great interview, and definitely keep in touch. And I hope that things continue to go on a great level for you as far as success and more familiarity with your music and fan base and everything like this. So you definitely keep doing what you do, and we'll be here doing what we do together with you to support it.
Sounds good, brother. Sounds like everything's working out for both of us. So moving forward, hopefully in the next year, 18 months, we can do another one for the next Wreck-Defy album.
I would love to do that. You have, like I said, open invitation. And, as long as I'm doing this, there'll always be a home for you here on Metal Meltdown on Metal Messiah Radio. But for now, let's go crank up some more Wreck-Defy with music off Remnants of Pain. And crank it up loud.
Killer.